Hello, and this is the second video looking at working with formulae for level 2 functional skills maths. It follows on from one that introduced the basic ideas, and I'll put a link to that in the comments below. If you haven't already watched that, you probably want to watch that before we start. This part 2, we're looking at harder questions where the thing that we're trying to work out is in the wrong part of the formula. So you may have come across this idea if you've already done speed, distance and time. The formula for speed is distance over time, but we quite often reorganize the formula to also have distance is equal to speed times time, or time is equal to distance over speed. You're often taught a triangle way of remembering all three, but you need to be able to work with this all way around depending on which of these three things you need to find. If you've got some algebra skills, you know how to start from this and turn it into this or this. If you haven't, you need to remember all three. So what we're looking at in this video is similar cases where the formula in the question is the wrong way round. So it's like we're given this formula, but we're trying to find the distance. So let's have a look at some examples. So in this question, the formula to calculate your body mass index is this, and we're told that BMI is your body mass index, W is your weight in kilograms, and H is your height in meters. And then we've got a question here. Aloka has a BMI of 23.88 and is 1.65 meters tall. What is her weight? Now, if we were doing GCSE maths, we would probably rearrange this formula to be in terms of the weight. But that requires some algebra skills we don't really need for level 2 functional skills. So we're going to do it a slightly more ad hoc way. And the first step is, as with basic formula questions, just check that you've got all but one of the letters. So BMI 23.88, height 1.65, and I'm trying to find W here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just write out the formula replacing the letters I know with numbers. And when I do that, I get 23.88 equals W divided by 1.65, the height, squared. And 1.65 squared, remember squared is just 1.65 times 1.65. So I can use my calculator to work out that that is 2.7225. And when I redo that, 23.88 equals W over 2.7225. And now my problem is, how do I work out what W is from this? Well, before we try this one, let's look at an example where the numbers are easier. Let's suppose we were a bit overweight and we had a body mass index of 30, which is actually quite heavy. We didn't know the weight, but we did know that the height was 2, so the height squared is 4. So this is a 2-meter tall person who's a bit on the heavy side. And here, it's a bit easier to spot what we need. W, what does W have to be to make this sum work? It needs to be something that when I divide it by 4, I get 30. If I do 30 times 4, which is 120, you can see that will make this work, because 120 divided by 4 equals 30. And I knew this would work because divide and times are opposites of each other. So by doing the opposite of what's happening to W over here to 30, I find the answer. That doesn't solve this one, but it gives me a method, because Because this is arranged exactly the same way, I can use exactly the same idea. I've got a division here. I'm going to do a multiplication. So 23.88 times 2.7225 will give me W. So this is W equals this, and that is 65.0133. That's probably more decimal places than I really need, so I'm going to round it to 65 kilograms. So if you're struggling to spot what to do with something like this, just make up some easy numbers and just think about what you'd have to do to get the thing to work and then repeat it over here. But basically, you're thinking about what sort of sum you've got to do here and doing the opposite one. So if it's divide, you do times. If it's times, you do divide. If it's add, you do subtract. If it's subtract, you do add. Let's have a look at a slightly more complicated example. So the formula to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius is this. Yesterday the temperature was 21 degrees Celsius. What was the temperature in Fahrenheit? So again, well, first thing to notice here is we haven't got all the letters explained to us like we normally have, but we can guess. Fahrenheit must be the F and Celsius must be the C, and there aren't any other letters. So that's not a problem. So the first thing we're going to do again is write it out. 21 is the Celsius, the C, is equal to 5/9. Now remember, where you've got a number right next to a bracket, you've got a missing times sign. So I'm going to write that in now. F minus 32. Okay, now the reason this is harder is there's more than one sum on this side. In this example, it was really only one sum. We had to square the 1.65, but that's just basic maths. And then our letter only had one sum being done to it. In this example, our letter has got the 32 being taken off it and it's being multiplied. Now, normally, when you do BIDMAS, remember BIDMAS is the opposite, is the order of the sum has to be done in. Normally, when you do BIDMAS, you do brackets first, indices and division, which we haven't got, and then we do multiplication. Now, because we're doing everything backwards, we want to work backwards through the BIDMAS thing as well. So we want to leave what's in brackets as the last thing to undo, and we're going to start by looking at this bit. So this is a multiplication, same as before. I need to undo it by doing a division. Looking at simple numbers again, if I had 20 is equal to 4 times, I'm going to pretend this thing in brackets is just one number for the moment. So I've got some number I don't know, I'm multiplying it by 4 to get 20. We can see that 20, the opposite of multiplication, division, and 5 works. 5 times 4 is 20. So that method works. So if I do the same thing over here, 21 divided by 5/9, that will tell me what this bracket needs to be equal to. Now, if you remember, to divide by a fraction, we multiply by the fraction the other way up. And if we work that out on our calculator, we get an answer of 37.8. So what that's telling me now is this lot, this bracket, F minus 32, the contents of the bracket must be equal to 37.8. Now we know that F is some number must be bigger than this, because when we take 32 away, we end up there. how are we going to figure out what F is? Well, again, we're doing opposites. The opposite of minus is plus, so F has to be 37.8 plus 32. And that is equal to 69.8, and we're working out Fahrenheit here. So I hope those two examples have helped you think about how you would handle this more complicated problem where your formula's the wrong way round for the thing you're trying to work out.